celebrating our 100-year past, but we wanted to look to how the present can prepare the future. And so we chose the idea of Trailblazers for our March meeting because it is the excellence of those who are marking new trails that inspires us to achieve, to push the boundaries for ourselves and for all women. What more fitting group of women to invite than our Navy Trailblazers, women who have pushed themselves through higher education in STEM fields to crack open new doors for women in the Navy. I have to confess, my introductions of each of these women will not do them justice. Each sent a single-spaced, full page listing amazing educational levels, assignments, honors, and commendations. Although I'm a writer, I figured it would take most of the time each speaker has just to give their bios. So what I will say to introduce each of them is no more than a teaser. There simply isn't time to describe all the trails they've blazed. Our first speaker is going to be Commander Susan Pinckney, who graduated in 2002 from the U.S. Naval Academy and Aviation 2004. Squadron 3 instructor pilot, Command ASO, NATOPS officer and standardization officer, while attending Indiana University's Kelley School of Business and graduating with a master's in business administration and in strategic management. Upon completion of her tour in Bahrain as aide-de-camp in 2011, she attended the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, where she earned another master's degree with distinction in strategic studies. She has served in Germany as the lead planner for all U.S.-Israeli exercises, branch chief for joint and combined exercises, responsible for 18 joint multi-level national exercises and planning for all current and future NATO exercise series. She was officer in charge of a 9-month deployment in support of Strike Group 2, operating in the 5th and 6th Fleets, as well as being Squadron's training officer and operations officer. She was the fiscal year 15 Category 2 Navy and Marine Corps Association Leadership Awardee for Commander Helicopter Sea Combat Wing Atlantic. Personal decorations include a Defense Meritorious Service Medal, 3 Navy and 1 Army Commendation Medals, various campaign and unit awards, and she's accumulated over 2,300 flight hours. Commander Susan Pinckney, welcome.
Thank you. All right, let me try and make sure I can still share the screen. Figured it out earlier. All right, 2 seconds. Should open up in just a second. Come on, this button worked last time. There we go. All right, thank you, Nora Lynn, for the great introduction. It's kind of weird hearing about yourself like that, to be honest. Real quick, not going to take a lot of time. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit, kind of covered a lot of it, kind of my career to this point, and then Nora Lynn kind of asked specifically for stuff I think kind of got me here. It makes sense, and kind of go from there, and then take any questions. I said I'm current commanding officer of Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron in Norfolk, Virginia. That picture is from about 2 weeks ago from a permanent detachment that we have of 1 aircraft in Naples, Italy. So that's one of our aircraft up in the mountains of Italy earlier this month. Moving forward, I grew up in Bozeman, Montana, as my parents have already told you. And I went to the Naval Academy and then also have 3 masters at this point, MBA, Strategic Management, and National Security Studies. I am married. My husband, as stated, is actually Leslie's executive officer, who will speak next. And then we also have 2 children who are hopefully going down for a nap right now, but right now that's my husband's problem. For professionally, said I've flown in West Coast pilot for about the first 10 years. Main deployment there was 2007 during the Iraqi war, flying air ambulance missions out of northern Kuwait into southern Iraq and Kuwait area. After that was an instructor pilot, Same squadron I'm in right now is where I did my kind of department head middle management tour, where I was deployed for 9 months on a supply ship. So kind of an interesting experience, was deployed with civilian mariners as compared to the Navy.
Wow.
And took 2 aircraft out for 9 months for there, and then now back as the CO. Non-flying jobs, I was the aide de camp, a personal assistant to the ESG-5 commander, who basically owns expeditionary ships and crisis response for 5th Fleet in Bahrain, and then an exercise planner in Germany, and a lot of time to just travel and see Europe pre-COVID. So that was great. Squadron I command right now, what it is, we have 14 MH-60 Sierras, so the aircraft you already saw. We also have 5 UAVs, about 450 personnel, and 8 detachments to deploy around the world. So stuff that the squadron has done since I've been in the squadron. I said we always have a permanent det in Italy. And then we also have sent a det out, did a 9-month cruise with the USS Baton last fall into summer, through the Soleimani assassination, kind of in 5th Fleet for that whole time in the Gulf, Bahrain, majority of the time. We also have the USS Comfort, which went down to Central and South America doing medical care for about 5 months, was another detachment we sent out. And then now we are moving into littoral combat ships. So starting in about 2 months, we'll be sending detachments out with 1 UAV, 1 manned aircraft. And our first ones will be going down to 4th Fleet doing counter drug ops. In about 2 years, they'll start going out to do mine countermeasures. And then the final thing that always kind of sits on any helicopter squadron anywhere is disaster relief. So especially in the summer on this coast, we sit in kind of a constant relief posture if there were to be a hurricane that hits anywhere. So my career, for instance, I did, I think about 40 days flying in support of Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans. There's the aircraft, not a lot to say about it. It carries stuff probably more than anything else. It does have arm capability, but biggest missions we're doing is search and rescue, moving people, moving parts, moving stuff. So it's really kind of what we bring the fleet on a daily basis with an armed response if necessary. Moving forward, possibly if the screen freezes. There's basically the Fire Scout, so our UAV that we have. So basically we'll send a det out that has very small detachment because there's not a lot of seats or beds really on an LCS ship. So about 25 people with 2 ships that'll go out, as said, initially doing counter drug ops down in the South America area. So there's kind of the missions we have. If there's anything I missed on there. You have special warfare support as well. And that's pretty much it. One specific thing to my squadron, we are the only squadron on the East Coast and one of 2 in the Navy that are running every 60 and every UAV mission. So of all the squadrons on the entire East Coast, we're the only one that does mine countermeasures, traditional 60 missions, and has UAVs. All right, so there's my career. Looking at kind of how I think I ended up where I am sitting today. The first one is just doing the job. So if I were to kind of look at my career, I think different females look at stuff differently for how they feel as a female. Mine was just always do the job, know your job well, and that will get you as far as it can take you, as good as you can do it. Knowing your knowledge being based on guidance and not your personal opinion, knowing the systems, knowing the airframe, and knowing the publications, the people side. Another big one I think I see as people advance through a Navy career is organization. Ends up far more valuable than a lot of other skills you can have. The workload becomes overwhelming if you can't maintain it in an organized manner or delegate it appropriately. Next one is just being a personality that works well in a group setting. So what the Navy is, you're always going to be combined, working with a lot of people. A strong support network. I think a lot of people tend to talk about a support network from the aspect of the family and outside of a job. And while I think that is clearly vital, and I would not be sitting where I am without that, I think probably as important that gets spoken to a lot less is the support network within the job. So the peers that you build, the people that you work with, you go to when you need references, and kind of building that and maintaining that. Personally, I'd say not shutting doors early and leaving possibilities open. It's kind of hit me. One of the questions Norlin asked is kind of like, if you have this goal, how'd you get to your goal? Or what kept you on that path? And if I'm honest, this was never my goal. I came in, I really ended up in the Navy because it paid for college, and then I enjoyed flying, so I stayed. At no point was I necessarily saying I want to be a commanding officer and I want to do a full tour of retirement. But I always knew that I never shut that door earlier. I always kept options open, which is one of the reasons I did like graduate school while I was an instructor pilot. So if I had decided to get out of the Navy, I'd be set up well in that angle as well. So kind of not shutting down things until you absolutely know what you want to do. Very basic, but solutions to problems seems really simple. But it's one that when I think about it, if I look at what people are bringing to me, what sets people apart is not the person that walks in and identifies a problem, but the person who walks in with a problem and a recommended solution or a way forward. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that broke me out at different points in my career, is recognizing, even if I can't come with a solution at that time, coming in saying, here's the problem, I will be back with a solution. And I'll have something to you shortly for kind of how to get to you at this time frame. Personally, I never was, again, looking to kind of move forward or move up. I was just trying to do the job I was doing at that time to the best of my ability. And that is what actually tends to move you up within the Navy. Kind of talk about personal challenges. Empathy, I think one of the harder ones for me, especially sitting in the CO seat right now, is being too empathetic at times and being able to create professional distance and recognizing when to step back and not take the actions of others too personally, that it affects me internally. So that's probably the biggest lesson I've had to learn, I'd say, over kind of the second half of my career, is there are points where you just have to acknowledge that somebody else got themselves into the situation. And while they may be the best person in the world and you want to take care of them and get them out of it, it's not personally on you. They are also responsible for their own decisions. And then what I see is everybody moves up in any organization is learning how to delegate effectively, but also follow up so that you don't miss what actually needs to get done. Going forward a slide, looking at kind of my personal key success, where I'm sitting right now. I think for getting to this job, basically I already hit on it, but technical expertise and knowledge. So just simply, especially we are in a field where not only are we in a leadership role, but we are operating equipment that you have to know very well to do the job effectively. Huge to my job, especially when I talk about the different platforms, mission sets, that's literally in basically everywhere except for the Pacific, is we have to be adaptable and you have to be flexible, and you have to be able to move forward when something goes in a direction you're not expecting to. Leadership, we talk a lot about subordinate leadership. It's something we train to very heavily within the Navy, all the way back to Naval Academy. We always focus on how to lead the people behind us. I think just as important as pure leadership or working well within a group of peers. And then at the end of the day, if I look at what gets people to command in the Navy, it is a results-driven organization. So it is you have a bar, it's meeting the bar. It's deploying what you're supposed to do, doing the mission when you're deployed. That is the thing that will move you forward. As far as in command, I think probably the biggest piece is the people, the 450 people every day that come in and do their job. If they're not motivated to do it, it's not going to work out well. The things I think that stand out for me personally is having that empathy. I think it really works well for any leader that is empathetic. With that being said, there still is a standard, and you have to know where the line is and you have to maintain that standard. And if you let the empathy take over from the standard, the overall performance will decrease. And then again, knowledge. Biggest one, I think, sitting in the seat I am right now and the job I'm in, is expectations. They need to be clear, they need to be concise, and they need to be coherent. So people have to know what you want when, and then they will do everything you ask of them. That is the biggest piece. And then the other one that is kind of one of the standards of the Navy, I think the best way to effectively delegate is defining the end goal you want to get to, not shaping how to get there and letting the people below you figure out their own path to get to the end result, and just focused on the result. And then the final one is decisiveness. Probably one of the areas I see a lot of people struggle as we kind of move up the ranks is at some point in time, you also just have to make a decision, and you can't go back and forth and have to make it. It needs to be based on the facts of the time. It has to be based on the pubs, everything that's out there. It needs to be appropriate. And if you're going to change that decision, you need to be willing to change the decision, which some people have a hard time will struggle with to some degree. But if you're going to change it, it needs to be because you're convinced that your decision is wrong, not just going back and forth wishy-washy. I think that, other than yet another picture of an aircraft, we are the Dragon Whales. Don't ask me what it is. I I could maybe define it. Yeah, we don't have a cool animal like most squadrons. With that, I will open it up for any questions.
Okay, I neglected to say